There's a big difference between talking and reporting, especially right now with a fire hose worth of news coming your way. You know what helps? Having reporters in the field. I'm Brad Milkey from ABC News, and that's what we've got on ABC's daily podcast, Start Here. Every morning, Start Here takes you across the country and around the world for a quick, smart look at the stories that matter. It's fast, it's straightforward, and sometimes, gasp, news can even be fun. So let's meet up tomorrow morning. Listen to Start Here wherever you get your podcasts.
Today on CityCast Madison. It's happening again. Dun-na-na-na! Madison's getting a new women's sports team. A women's collegiate fast-pitch softball team is in the works, slated to start up this June at Warner Park. This news is coming on the spiked heels of last year's announcements of both a women's pro soccer and pro volleyball league to be formed here. So, is Madison the city of women's sports? Are we in a league of our own? Samantha Rubin, the general manager for the Madison Mallards, says yes. She's been tapped to lead the new softball team, and she's bringing the heat. It's Monday, January 29th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Hi, Sam.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going super swell because another women's sports team is headed to Madison to join our bounty of existing women's teams here. And you're going to be managing a Madison softball team. What can you tell me about that?
It's awesome. So it's exciting to be a part of kind of like on the forefront of the women's sports. I think that the movement here in Madison is huge, right? It's quick, it's fast moving, it's growing, and the success of the UW women's sports and the rest of the things that are coming to Madison as well, and to be kind of on the cutting edge and the front end of it is pretty cool.
Yes, and talking about fast, it's going to be fast pitch.
Yes.
What can you tell me about the softball team? I'm so excited. As like a little softball player myself when I was a little girl.
I know. So many people have said that. So not much because we don't have a whole lot yet, but we're currently in the middle of naming the team. So up until February 1st, people can actually submit their names that they want the team to be called. So currently it's Madison Softball, but obviously that will change once we get a name and a logo and a brand and that sort of thing. We have some really cool, promising things that people are submitting, some really unique things, and it's pretty cool to be a part of that. We're connecting with all the local softball communities. So high school, travel, little league, college, right? All the different levels. We're connecting with them right now and understanding where we can kind of fill a void for them. We're learning pretty quickly that the softball space, the super competitive softball space in Madison isn't necessarily there, which is so crazy because on the baseball side, obviously with the Mallards, like baseball is tapped out. Like you cannot even put another club team here if you wanted to. Like it is so competitive here on the baseball side. And that's not the case in softball. And so it's really interesting to be interacting with this different group of people to understand like where we can step in and help.
Yeah. And there sounds like there's already there's interest in having the team. And so that's the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And the coolest part was, we don't know what we have, right? Minor league baseball is a thing. You create a minor league baseball team, you know what you're walking into, you know what your fan base is going to be, you know how to do it. Softball, that's not a thing, right? There's some developmental leagues down in Florida, but they don't do tickets and fans and promotions and appearances and bobbleheads and right, like they don't do any of that. And so this is the first of its kind, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, and I feel like Madison has such a strong culture around women's sports. I want to note that you had a major milestone for women's sports in Madison yourself because you're the first woman to be the general manager of the Madison Mallards baseball team. And I imagine you're going to be using that energy and that expertise for this effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have only been I'm the fourth GM in Mallard's history. We've been around since 2001. So the turnover is pretty low in this role, which is really nice. And to be the first female in such an established community organization is incredible, right? Like it was super humbling and really exciting to be put into a role like this. And people ask me all the time, like, did you know you wanted to do this in your life? And I had no idea that this was my path, right? And so to be in a role like this where so many women have connected with me professionally or personally and said something along the lines of like, I never thought I can actually do what you're doing is really, really cool. And then now to have even to extend that more into overseeing everything for both teams and being a part of both teams and to create even more opportunity on the women's sports side is even cooler. I mean, like, I could not ask for anything more in this job, which is so exciting.
Yeah. And you're originally from Florida.
I am. So I moved here in December of 2021. And it's funny, I always talk about like when I moved here because when I interviewed, so my now boss in the Mallards organization flew me out for an interview and I came to a Mallards game and I got to see a forward match, right? And I got to kind of like do all the fun, the farmers market, like all the fun summer things in Madison. And that was August of 2021. And I started December 1st. And I remember moving here being like, what is this place? Like, this is not what I interviewed in. It's cold. It's snowing. Like, what
I was wondering.
They tricked me. Like, what am I doing in this place?
You've been doomed.
I cannot believe this. But yeah, I mean, I don't love driving the snow still. It will take a while for me to get there. But yeah, I am originally from warmth.
Yeah. And so, I mean, in terms of the energy around women's sports, does it feel differently at all from Florida or, you know, other places you've lived and worked?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Madison is so tight knit. Like I think this is a quote, but it's like a small town in like a city form, right? Like you can go places and see people you know, or see someone who with a Mallards hat or a softball hat, right? And it's cool to be able to see that all around. Where I'm from in Florida, I'm from like the Tampa Bay area. Like it's just a big city. There's millions of people. There's still that community side of things and that like community local vibe a little bit, but not even close to what it is here. And so to be able to get that here and to see success in such success in women's sports, specifically with the university and the potential women's soccer team and the women's volleyball team and like all these things that are here or coming is awesome. Like Florida doesn't have where I grew up, there wasn't a women's professional team close by or that I knew of, right? When I got to college, I went to University of Florida, also had great success in volleyball and in softball and had great success in their sports there. That was just in this college town. So it didn't really stem outside to the rest of the state. Whereas I feel like here it has, like people who don't live in Madison know the women's volleyball team and know the softball team and know the hockey team, right? And so that's the goal for this too, is to not just be Madison based, but to go statewide and get into Chicago. And, you know, that's a market that's untapped.
We're coming for you, Chi-Town.
I know, we're coming. But
you come to us
that's
now.
A market, I know, but that's a market that's completely untapped in this space. They don't have a women's summer collegiate softball team, right?
Yeah.
And we do. So we'll host softball teams up here. We'll host tournaments. We'll do all these things where we can venture outside of Madison proper, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm hearing you say, you know, that the Madison community feels really tight knit. Does that mean like the athletes and staff from the various teams and sports hang out?
Sort of. So, I mean, on our end, the baseball team will come in for the summer. They all live with host families. So that is the plan for softball players as well. It's opening up a whole new world to not only host families, but ticket holders and partners. And you can notice, or I've at least noticed, the conversations are very different, right? It's a much more personal connection to softball of like my daughter, or I played softball, or I used to do this as a college student or whatever. And it's just a more personal tie, whereas these conversations for baseball are very much more like business driven. Does it make sense for the business, the organization as a whole, that sort of thing? And now we're actually being able to like tug at some people's heartstrings to say like, my daughter plays travel softball and I love that you're doing this opportunity. So yes, I'll do XYZ, right? And so it's a different conversation, which is really cool because we didn't know that going in.
Yeah.
You're just kind of winging it.
I love that. Like it's bringing up the little pictures that I have of me as little Bianca, like holding my softball bat and the little pose.
T-ball. Yeah,
yes.
for sure. Like the little softball stance. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any sense of the history around Madison sports? Like, has Madison always been a big hub for women's sports, or is this more of a recent thing?
To my knowledge, it's been more of a recent thing. I know that softball was really big in Madison back in like the 70s and 80s, but I'm not 100% sure if that kind of stemmed from the university and softball coming to the university at that point. But I do know that I actually got an email from the publisher of Madison Magazine, and she sent us this front page of like an issue in the 70s or 80s or sometime back then. And the front page was this woman playing softball, and so it was definitely a thing back then. But my assumption is it kind of timed with when UW got softball as well, but I don't know that for a fact.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say a lot of our sports teams are really rooted in the university, but, last year it was announced, like you mentioned, a pro women's soccer team is heading to Madison this year, which that was like, the buzz was so real. And it does feel like we're starting to see a shift in the women's teams here beyond the college sports realm.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that this is the best place to do it because, I just think the Midwest as a whole, right? Like I think of, and I know probably a lot of people are UW fans, so I apologize for even saying this, but like Nebraska pulled 90,000 people to watch a volleyball game. Like that's huge to be able to do that. And I know it's Nebraska and I apologize
We'll root for Nebraska.
Exactly.
People listen no, we won't.
Yeah. But like to be able to pull 90,000 fans for a women's softball game and to have Caitlin Clark at the University of Iowa, like there's these brand new names that are coming out there and setting a trend for college athletics and in the short future here soon, right? Professional athletics as well. Of like these numbers are growing because people are latching on to these stories, and like because of that will trickle into professional sports, right? And it's starting at this college level, and we're getting that buy-in at this college level, and Caitlin Clark will one day be a WNBA player, right? And that will pull into the WNBA. And so there's no better place than Madison to bring this to.
Yeah. Sam, I'm honestly very moved by your energy and your enthusiasm.
You.
Like I'm having so much fun talking to you, and it's so clear your passion for this effort. And I wanted to ask on the business side, what's it been like being a woman in this industry, like as a whole, but specifically in Madison?
Yeah, I'll always be kind of a minority. Not only am I a woman, but I'm younger too. And so I'll always be in that minority of a young woman in the room. I used to be really intimidated. I'm not going to lie. Like I'd walk into a room and I'd be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, and I would kind of have this like imposter syndrome sort of thing of like, there's no way I belong in this room. Like something's wrong, or I'm in this alternate reality or whatever. Like this is not my life. And I used to kind of get freaked out, and I would then, as that kind of went on, I would just kind of like chime in more, and I would understand that like I actually do know what I'm doing, right? And I would sit in these rooms and I would say like, well, no, it's not this, it's this, or whatever the conversation may be. And so as my confidence grew and as I got more experienced and got older to understand that this is not a dream and this is my life, that kind of goes away. It's always funny because my signature at the bottom of my email says Samantha, but I always sign it Sam because I go by Sam. And you can definitely know when people aren't looking past my email, where it's just kind of like, oh, hey, here I am. And they're like, oh, I was not expecting you, right? And
wow.
So, yeah, so it's happened a couple times, but like it always ends up fine. But again, like I think it more so comes down to the fact that growing up, I knew I wanted to work in sports. I had no idea like what that meant or what that looked like. And to be able to now show people or show a young girl like what this could mean for them, or a college student what this could mean for them, or whoever, that this is a path and you can be in this role and you can do this stuff. Like that's all if I can do that to one person, like I would be a very happy person.
I'm glowing. I'm glowing vicariously through your glow.
Yeah, so I mean it's cool. It's pretty exciting.
Well, you're definitely helping our city be this capital for women's sports, and it just feels good, at least speaking for myself, seeing this motion. I want to circle back to something you mentioned at the top of our conversation, which is that there's currently a Name the Team contest for the New Madison softball team, which is really, really fun. You got 500 submissions at least so far from the community, which is incredible. And you guys are still accepting submissions. So what are you looking for in the name?
Yeah, so people have been submitting things that people think it has to go with the mallards, and like it doesn't. People are submitting a lot of ducks or a lot of birds and a lot of things that
spread your wings away
right there you go, exactly. And like we're not 100% set on that. Like it does not have to combine with the mallards. Some people have submitted like the lady mallards, and like we want to not also go down that route. We want to be able to differentiate from the mallards enough where it's a brand that can stand on its own. Yes, we'll be playing at the same ballpark, and yes, we'll do a lot of things together, but it's important that this is softball and this is mallards, and that they can do their own thing. And so I don't know, we don't really have super specific like things that we want to hit. We think that when it comes, like we'll just all know it, and we'll all just be like, that's it, like this is it, and we know it. It also doesn't have to start with an M. We're getting a lot of M names, so like Madison, something that starts with an M, doesn't have to be that. The one specific or the one thing it has to tie to Madison. That's all we ask for, is that whatever the name may be has to in some way, shape, or form tie back to the city. Outside of that, we're pretty open.
Can you give us any of the names that have been submitted that are popping out to you?
Not right now. We're kind of
we're keeping it under the wraps. That's fair.
Yeah, under wraps. We have some favorites that have come through so far, and there's a ton of them though. So everyone has their own favorite in the office, and so we're all kind of battling it out and trying to say like, "Well, no, you're wrong, and I want this one," and like it's this whole thing in the office that's kind of fun. But
and I think I read there's a lot of women in your office too.
There are, yeah. So we have, I think it's 8 executives that are females in the office out of like, it's actually majority of them of women and are in exec roles here. And then in the office as a whole, there's, I think like 13 or 14. So there's a decent amount for a sports team, which is really nice.
A lot of lady power. I love it. I was thinking, it might be fun if we came up with some options and checked with checked with the team. And this morning, and we got first thought was lady sluggers, which I know some people don't want to be called a lady. We got a suggestion from our newsletter editor, the pitches.
Okay.
We'll leave that as funny. Yeah, we'll leave that one. And
that's funny.
Yeah, and then you guys probably got this one in, but the Madison Mavens.
We did get that one a lot.
Yeah.
We got that one submitted a ton of times. I think that someone in our office that's on their like top 3. But yeah, we have gotten that one a lot. It's funny you said the Sluggers because my dog's name is Slugger.
Oh.
And so that's also come up a ton of times, and everyone's just like, Sam, that just means your dog has to be the mascot. And I was like, I guess so.
I love it. What kind of dog?
He's a pit.
He's a pit bull. Hey, honestly, I actually am committed to that idea.
Yeah. I know. Everyone has said that. He hangs out in the office a lot. So, I mean, maybe it's just meant to be that way. But we'll see.
Well, Sam, before we let you go, what are your hopes for the women's sports scene in Madison going forward?
I think the women's sports scene as a whole is just to continue to grow and to thrive in the city and to get support from everyone and to be able to, just continue to grow this space. I mean, the fact that Madison already has so many, not only the university, right, but just so many teams as a whole is pretty impressive for a town of this size, and to be able to draw in crowds that the Mallards do or Forward does and that sort of thing. And so to recreate and replicate that on the women's side is a huge goal for us, is to be able to create this equal playing field for the Mallards and for softball, and to be able to say like we drew the same number of people for Mallards and softball. And that's a huge goal of ours, is to sell the stadium out and to get everyone here in town to come to some softball games and to show them that women's sports is just as fun, if not more fun. I mean, softball is super fast paced, which is cool. Baseball is a little bit of a slower paced game, right? And so to be able to see something a little different is awesome. It's an awesome opportunity to just show support to not only a local team, but to a women's local sports team, which is, I mean, that's all I can ever ask for.
Sam, you rock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have to get you out to a softball game.
I would love that. We would love that. Absolutely, please.
Yeah, we will definitely do that.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's Samantha Rubin, General Manager for the Madison Softball and Madison Mallards teams. If you want to help name the new softball team, if you've got some great ideas, you have until this Thursday, February 1st to submit. We'll toss a link to that form in our show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed this show, why not share this episode with a woman in your life who consistently knocks it out of the park? Stunting is a habit. All right, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then.